We don't know why Baalbek was chosen as this specific site. It may well be some kind of special power place.
They say the story of Baalbek is Roman, a monument to imperial power. But that may just be a veil, hiding a far more terrifying truth, a haunting new theory, driven by the cold analysis of Grok AI, suggests the foundation was never a temple. The data indicates it was a silent machine, built not to worship gods, but to confront a terrifyingly empty void in the cosmos. This raises a chilling possibility. If we are standing on the ruins of an ancient shield, the real question isn't who built it, but what hostile force from that void made its construction a necessity. The collapse of a safe explanation for many hundreds of years. The story of Baalbek, a famous ancient site located in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, was considered a settled fact that everyone agreed upon. This well-known story stated that the powerful Roman Empire was responsible for building the incredible structures we see there, including the gigantic stone platform made from the largest carved blocks in the entire world. Historians and archaeologists explained that these giant temples were built to honor Roman gods, and the unbelievable size of the stones was simply a way for the Roman emperors to show their immense power and their advanced engineering skills to the world. This explanation was simple, it was logical, and it was accepted by almost everyone because it fit neatly into our understanding of history. So there was no reason to question it. But that safe and comfortable story has now been completely shattered by a new and deeply unsettling discovery. Recently, a global research team began a huge project to create a new kind of map of the world's ancient wonders. Using a very powerful new tool called Grok AI, Grok AI is an artificial intelligence, which means it is a computer system that can think and learn in ways that are similar to a human brain, but much, much faster. Its job was to look at thousands of pieces of data from each site, including laser scans and ground radar, to find deep patterns that human eyes might have missed. When the AI analyzed the data from Baalbek, everyone expected it to classify the site as an architectural structure or a religious building. Instead, the AI returned a result that made no sense, flagging the entire foundation with a completely strange label: passive frequency device. A passive device is something that does not create its own power, and a frequency device is a machine built to interact with invisible waves of energy. The scientists thought it was a computer mistake, a simple error in the system. So they ran the entire analysis again. The result was exactly the same. The old story was not just wrong, it was completely misleading. Baalbek was not a temple. According to the AI, it was a machine. This realization destroyed the old explanation and left the team facing a much more disturbing reality. If the massive foundation was not built for worship, but was instead some kind of giant device, then what were its individual parts designed to do? To begin answering this, Grok AI suggested they look at the most basic element of all, the actual surface of the giant stones. The cuts not meant for human eyes, following the AI's strange suggestion. The research team prepared to examine the surface of the great stones in a way that had never been done before. They used a special machine called a scanning electron microscope, which is a very powerful type of microscope that allows scientists to see details that are thousands of times smaller than a single human hair, revealing a world that is normally completely invisible to us. The team expected to find the usual signs of ancient construction, such as the small, uneven marks left behind by bronze or iron chisels, or perhaps the smooth, weathered texture caused by thousands of years of wind and rain. They believed these microscopic images would simply confirm that the stones were shaped by human hands using basic tools. But what the microscope revealed was something else entirely. Something so unexpected that the scientists in the room fell silent. Instead of finding the random marks of hand tools, they saw a surface that was engineered with incredible precision. The entire face of the giant stone was covered in a perfectly regular, repeating pattern of extremely small crystals, arranged like a microscopic net or a tiny, perfect grid. This was not a pattern that is found in nature, and it was not something that could have been created by accident. It was clearly artificial, meaning it had been intentionally designed and created. Confused by what they were seeing, the scientists fed the high-resolution images of this crystal pattern directly into the Grok AI system. They asked the AI a simple question: find anything in the known world that has a surface like this. The answer that came back from the AI was immediate and shocking. The microscopic pattern on the Baalbek stones was a nearly perfect match to the special surface coatings used on two very modern pieces of technology. The first match was the surface of a modern microwave antenna dish, which is a machine designed to collect very weak energy signals from far away. The second match was the surface of advanced optical lenses, which are special pieces of glass built to carefully filter and focus specific types of invisible energy waves. This meant the ancient builders did not just cut the stones. They engineered their surfaces at a microscopic level for a purpose that had nothing to do with building a temple. The stones were not made to be looked at by people, but were instead designed to interact with some kind of invisible energy, much like a giant lens or a giant antenna. This discovery made the purpose of the device even more mysterious, but it also raised an even bigger question. A device needs carefully made parts. But why would these parts need to be so unbelievably heavy? The common sense idea was that the weight was just to show off power. But the AI was about to show them a physical reason that was much more frightening. The physics of impossible mass. The research team now accepted that the stones of Baalbek were not just building materials, but were actually precisely engineered components of a giant machine, similar to the parts of a huge antenna. However, the incredible weight of these components remained a giant mystery that no one could solve. Why would anyone build a device using individual pieces that weighed 800 tons? A weight that is almost impossible to move even with our best modern technology? To find an answer, the researchers turned back to the Grok AI, giving it a new and very specific job. They instructed the AI to run thousands of computer simulations, which are like complex tests inside a computer, to see if there was any physical reason, any law of science, that could explain the need for such an enormous amount of mass. The AI began its work, creating a digital version of the Baalbek stones and testing what would happen to them when hit by every known type of energy. The results that came back were stunning and completely changed their understanding of the problem. Grok AI explained a scientific principle called resonance. Resonance is what happens when a small vibration at just the right frequency can build up and become so powerful that it can destroy a strong object, just like a singer's voice can sometimes shatter a glass. The AI then showed that if the stones at Baalbek were any lighter, they would be dangerously vulnerable to a very specific kind of energy, an energy with a very low frequency, which means the waves are very long and powerful. The simulations proved that under the force of this energy, any stone smaller than about 800 tons would begin to vibrate uncontrollably, shattering into pieces from the inside out. This discovery was a complete shock. The immense weight of the Baalbek stones was not a choice made by the builders to show off their strength or to impress visitors. It was a critical design feature, a mandatory safety requirement that was absolutely necessary for the device to function without destroying itself. The 800-ton blocks were not just heavy for the sake of being heavy. They were the minimum weight required to create a damping effect, which is the ability of a heavy object to absorb vibrations and prevent them from becoming destructive. The team now knew that the machine was built to withstand an unbelievable amount of raw power. But this new understanding only led to an even more alarming question. Where was this incredible energy coming from? To find out, The AI was told to analyze the exact direction the entire device was aimed, and the answer was not pointing to any known star or planet. The target in the silence of space. The team now understood that Baalbek was a massive device built to withstand a powerful force, but they still did not know where that force was coming from. The next logical step was to determine the exact direction the machine was pointing, because its target would provide the most important clue. The researchers fed the precise alignment of the entire foundation into the Grok AI and instructed it to scan the skies for any object of importance. They expected the AI to find a match with a major star, a distant planet, or perhaps the center of our own galaxy. The AI ran the calculations, comparing Baalbek's orientation against sky maps from thousands of years in the past. But the result was a complete surprise. The device was not aimed at anything familiar. Feeling confused, the researchers asked the AI to think differently and to compare Baalbek's alignment to something much bigger and much older. They told it to use a special map called the Cosmic Microwave Background, or CMB. The CMB is the oldest light in the entire universe, a faint energy that was left over from the Big Bang, the event that created everything. This map shows what the universe looked like when it was just a baby, and it covers the whole sky in every direction. On this map, scientists had previously discovered a giant, unexplained anomaly, a massive area of the sky that is far colder and emptier than everything around it. This mysterious region is called the Eridanus supervoid, or the CMB cold spot, and it is one of the biggest mysteries in modern science. When Grok AI placed the direction of Baalbek onto this ancient map of the universe, the entire research team was stunned into silence. It was a perfect match. The entire gigantic machine on Earth was aimed directly, with absolute precision, at this vast, cold, empty patch of space. But the AI had one more shocking piece of information. The Earth wobbles very slowly on its axis over thousands of years, which means the view of the stars from the ground gradually changes. The AI calculated that this perfect alignment with the cold spot could only have happened at one specific time in history, a time around 12,500 years ago, long before any known civilization was supposed to have such knowledge. Baalbek was not aimed at a god in the sky. It was aimed at a terrifyingly empty void in the fabric of the universe. An enormous device like this would need an equally enormous source of power to operate, if its target was in deep space. Where did the energy to run it come from? The answer, it turned out, was right beneath their feet. The Earth as a battery. The team now understood the what, the why, and the where of the Baalbek device, but they still needed to understand the how. A machine of this incredible size, designed to withstand immense forces and aimed at the distant universe, would require a power source that was equally gigantic and reliable. The researchers asked Grok AI to analyze the one place they had not yet considered: the ground directly underneath the foundation. They provided the AI with deep geological maps and radar scans that showed the structure of the rock for many miles below the surface. The answer that the AI returned was more ingenious and astonishing than anything they had imagined so far. The AI first highlighted Baalbek's very special location on the planet. The entire site is built directly on top of a massive and active geological feature known as the Dead Sea Transform Fault System. A fault system is a deep crack in the Earth's crust, where two of the giant plates that make up the planet's surface are constantly scraping and pushing against each other, creating immense and continuous pressure. The AI then showed that the placement of the giant foundation stones was not random at all. Each massive block was positioned with perfect accuracy over the specific points in the fault line where this underground pressure was at its absolute maximum. Then, Grok AI explained a scientific principle called the piezoelectric effect. This is a natural process that happens inside certain crystals, especially quartz, when quartz crystals are squeezed under extreme pressure. They release a small but constant flow of electrical energy. The AI's analysis showed that the limestone blocks used at Baalbek are naturally filled with a very high concentration of these tiny quartz crystals. The ancient builders had designed a system of almost unbelievable genius. They had intentionally placed these massive, crystal-filled stones in a way that used the constant pressure of the grinding earth plates to squeeze them, turning the entire foundation into a giant generator. The earth itself was being used as a massive battery to power the device. The team now had a complete picture of a perfectly designed machine, with finely tuned components, a clear target in deep space, and a power source as big as the entire planet itself. So, why was it left as an unfinished ruin? The answer to that question was waiting for them in the nearby stone quarry, where the largest component of all had been left behind: the scar of an attack. The team now possessed a nearly complete understanding of the Baalbek device, a machine of impossible size and incredible purpose. But one final, giant question remained unanswered. If this device was so perfectly designed and so critically important, why was it never finished? The key to this mystery, they believed, was located in the ancient stone quarry, a short distance away from the main temple site. A stone quarry is the place where the ancient workers cut the giant blocks directly out of the mountain. Lying in this quarry is the most famous of all the unfinished stones, a single block of rock weighing an estimated 1,650 tons, making it one of the heaviest objects ever shaped by humans. For centuries, the simple explanation was that the builders had made a mistake, that the stone had cracked during the cutting process or was simply too heavy to move, and so they had no choice but to abandon it where it lay. This story of simple failure was accepted as the most likely truth, but the research team, now guided by Grok AI, looked at this giant, abandoned stone with new eyes. They decided to investigate it not as a simple construction error, but as the most important piece of evidence in their entire investigation. To see what was happening deep inside the stone, they used advanced technologies that the original builders could never have imagined. They used ultrasonic scanning, which is a technology that sends powerful sound waves deep into the rock to create a detailed picture of everything inside. Much like a doctor uses an ultrasound to see inside a person's body. They also used ground-penetrating radar to map out every single crack, flaw, and change in density within the massive block. They were searching for the real reason why this stone was left behind. The images that came back from the scans were deeply disturbing and immediately proved the old story was wrong. The cracks inside the stone were not the kind of cracks that happen from a simple mistake during quarrying. A normal crack from stress is usually jagged and random, following the natural weak points in the rock. The cracks inside the 1,650-ton stone were completely different. They were clean, straight, and showed evidence of being created by an event of extreme and sudden energy. The scans revealed patterns of thermal shock, which is a specific type of damage that only happens when a material is heated to an incredibly high temperature and then cooled down almost instantly, causing it to shatter from the inside. The cracks all started from one direction, on the side of the stone that was facing up towards the sky. The team fed all of this new data, every scan and every image, into the Grok AI and asked it to simulate what kind of event could possibly cause this exact pattern of damage. The AI tested every known possibility, including earthquakes, tool failures, and natural flaws in the rock. But none of the simulations came even close to matching the evidence. There was only one scenario, one event, that perfectly recreated the damage seen in the scans. A single, focused beam of immense energy striking the stone from above. The conclusion was undeniable and terrifying. The stone was not abandoned. It was destroyed. It had been a target. This was not a story of failure. It was the story of a battle. This single block was likely a spare component, a replacement part for the main device. If a spare part waiting in the quarry was targeted and hit with such incredible force, what had happened to the main device itself? The team immediately turned their attention back to the Trilithon Foundation. But this time, they were not looking for tool marks. They were looking for a battle scar. The fingerprints of an invisible enemy. The shocking discovery in the quarry completely changed the direction of the investigation. The team now knew they were not looking at a failed construction project, but at the scene of a destructive event. With this new and frightening knowledge, they returned to the main Baalbek site, to the three massive stones of the Trilithon Foundation that formed the core of the ancient machine. Their mission was no longer to figure out how it was built, but to search for the battle scars that would prove it had been attacked. To do this, they needed to see the stones in more detail than any human eye possibly could. They used a technology called a 3D laser scanner. This machine works by sending out millions of tiny, harmless beams of light that travel to the surface of the stones and bounce back, allowing a computer to create a perfect digital map of every single mark, crack, and imperfection. A map so accurate, it could show details smaller than a single grain of sand. At first, when the team looked at the digital map on their computer screens, they saw nothing out of the ordinary. The tops of the giant stones looked just like any ancient rock, weathered and worn down by thousands of years of sun, wind, and rain. But their human eyes were not trained to see the real evidence. The team gave the enormous amount of data, every single measurement from the laser scanner, to the Grok AI and asked it to search for any anomalies, any tiny details that did not belong there. After only a few minutes, the AI flagged thousands of microscopic spots on the upper surfaces of the Trilithon stones, the sides that were constantly facing towards the sky. These spots were completely invisible without extreme magnification, following the AI's guide. The researchers once again used their powerful electron microscopes to zoom in on these exact locations. What they saw confirmed their fears. In each spot, they found an extremely thin layer of vitrification. Vitrification is a special process where rock is heated up so fast and to such a high temperature that its surface literally melts and turns into a thin layer of glass before it has a chance to cool down. This is the same kind of damage that a powerful energy weapon would leave behind. But the most important discovery was not the glass itself, but the pattern it created. The AI showed them that the glass spots were not in random places. Instead, they formed a large, organized, swirling shape across the top of the stones. This shape looked like the way energy spreads out when it hits a powerful barrier. The team asked the AI to simulate what could cause this specific pattern. The computer's conclusion was unbelievable. The swirling pattern of glass was not the result of a direct hit. It was the result of an energy shield being hit by an incoming attack. The Baalbek device had been turned on, and its defensive field had successfully stopped the blast from space. The glass marks were the fingerprints of the attack, the splash damage that occurred as the shield bent and deflected the incoming energy beam. Baalbek had worked. It had functioned as a shield and had defended the planet. But the attack was so powerful that it still managed to destroy the spare component in the quarry and overload the entire system, rendering it useless. The investigation had begun with a mystery about who built this place. But now that question seemed insignificant. They were facing a much more terrifying reality. If Baalbek was a shield, and that shield was now broken, what did that mean for the people living on Earth today? The legacy of a silent war. The long journey of this investigation has finally led to a complete and chilling answer. Baalbek was never a temple built for worship. All of the evidence, from the microscopic patterns on its surface to the impossible weight of its stones, points to one single, undeniable conclusion. It was a planetary defense system, a forgotten civilization. With a deep understanding of advanced physics and geology, that far exceeds our own, built this machine to act as a giant shield for our world. They used the power of the planet itself to run it. And they aimed it at a dark, empty region of the universe because they knew a danger was coming from that exact direction. This is the terrible truth that the archaeologists have uncovered. The worst discovery is not just that our history books are wrong, but that our planet has a hidden history of a cosmic war. The builders of Baalbek were not just architects, they were soldiers, and they fought a battle for our survival. Baalbek is not a monument to a lost civilization's greatness. It is the broken remnant of their desperate attempt to protect us all. It is a silent warning, a message across thousands of years that we are not alone, and that not everything in the universe is friendly. The original mystery was who could have built such a thing. But the real question, the one that truly matters now, is much simpler and far more terrifying. Has the danger from that silent void ever really left?